Connecticut woman says her biological son was held captive for 20 years by a monster. Imagine you're watching the news February 17, 2025, and you see that a young man, a 32-year-old man, has set ablaze a Connecticut house in Waterbury. And that man happened to be your son that you've given up for custody 32 years ago. Y'all, this story is very deep, so let's get into it. It starts with Kimberly Sullivan, 56 years old, who is actually the stepmother of the 32-year-old man who set the Waterbury, Connecticut home on fire. Apparently, she has been keeping him hostage since he was 11 years old in a room for 20 years. This is the stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan. First off, I know y'all asking, well, where's the biological parents at? Well, this is the mother of the man. We're going to call him S because he actually changed his name to keep his identity private. So this is the mother of S, Tracy Valladano. She is 52 years old and lives in Connecticut. The thing about this case is that it's very interesting because he also has a half sister. So they share the same mother. She gave up the half sister for adoption, and she wound up going into foster care, living 15 minutes away from S's home. The mother said giving up her son S, she thought was for the best at the time. It was to her ex-husband, and she shortly after, about 2 years or so after, her and her family began looking for her son. Okay, she said it was a very painful thing. It was very gut-wrenching for her to do, but she really thought she was doing the best for her child. Now, this is Heather, S's half sister. This is the other child that Tracy wound up giving up for adoption. The crazy thing is that she lived just 15 minutes away from S's house, living a great life. And she said it was very hard to see the conditions that her half brother was living in. And no human being should ever live there. She also said that it was her mother who contacted her and said, hey, that man that we seen on the news, that's actually your brother. That's my son. Wild work. Now, as far as the biological father, he has passed away about a year ago. S told police that Kim was actually the one who was in charge of everything. His stepsisters was aware, as well as his father, of the torment that he was suffering from. Shout out to News Nation for these pictures, but here is some of the conditions that he was living in. This is crazy, y'all. Look at this. Wild. Now remember, these are pictures coming from fire rescue, so this is after the fire, but you can clearly tell that the conditions that they were living in before the fire was not fit for anybody to live in. When fire rescue came to the house, they seen Kimberly was outside and they asked, was there anybody else in the house? And she said, yes, my stepson, and I also have 2 cats in there. They said when fire rescue pulled the man out, S, he is a man who is 5'9", weighing about 68 pounds at the time. He looked extremely emaciated as well as dirty and very unkempt. His hair was matted. You could tell that he was definitely going through the motions. So I know y'all thinking like nobody knew this little boy was in there besides the father and the stepsisters and the stepmother. Well, when he went missing from school, the principal actually was on the news saying, hey, when he first started going missing, we were actually reporting it. We actually wanted them to go out there and do a wellness check. And they did the wellness check. And when they went there, they said that the boy looked healthy, the house looked clean, like he was in a good environment. But that was 20 years ago in 2005. Now, I think Kimberly Sullivan's defense is just as diabolical and loony as she is. Now, this is why I could never be a defense attorney, because when you see a case like this being presented to you, I think it would be very hard to dispute the facts. As a matter of fact, it was recently updated that the defense actually petitioned for access to S's medical records because they want the state to prove that he was actually emaciated, that he was actually 68 pounds. Now, I want you to know that 13%, anything below 13% BMI is going to be considered dangerous, like life threatening. It's reported that S was at 11%. Like he was starting to go down into body failure, like shutdown of organs. This is the house that they lived in that was caught on fire. They said S did it with a lighter, hand sanitizer, and paper. Apparently, he was only allowed to come out of his room for less than 2 hours a day to do chores. He was barely given any food. His teeth was rotting out, so he wasn't going to the doctor or dentist, obviously. And supposedly they did this all under the guise of saying that he was being homeschooled at the time while he was still school aged. So S has done some public commenting on Facebook and other social media sites, pretty much saying that he has changed his name to S, even though this is not the name that he was given. But he's doing that in an attempt to gain some control back over his life. As far as his biological mother and half sister, they said they are definitely open to having a relationship with him, but of course, it's going to be done on his time. Now, this case is still in pretrial, so there's not a trial date set, but make sure you follow me for the updates because this case is so bizarre. I also find it very weird that the defense team has also petitioned for S's new address, but there's also a protective order out right now. So I'm like, how can you effectively protect this man if you're going to give his accused abuser access or at least the whereabouts of where he's at? Like, that's some mental and emotional distress that you're putting the victim through. And I think the law doesn't always think about that, take that into consideration. Y'all, tell me what y'all think about this case. Like I said before, make sure you're following to get updates on this case. But this is wild work. 20 years? Whew, tell me what you think.